Today we're not on a Ferrari safari, we're on a snail safari at the speed I'm going to try and make sure I don't miss tracks in this dingy light. It is very quiet out here. I've seen one impala that ran away. What else have we seen, Sense? A duiker and those giraffes. That's not very nice, Kirsten. But Rowan, no, I don't think a predator is going to sense that I'm injured and have a go at me. But if it does, I've got my Damascus blade to protect me. Or I'll just throw Senzo to the lion if it wants him. But no, unlikely, especially in the vehicle. Most animals still have quite a healthy respect for human beings during the day, even limpy ones like me at the moment. Oh, Kirsten, what I said wasn't very nice about Kirsten. On Rowan's question, she says, hopefully so, that an animal takes me out. Kirsten, I'm hurt. I thought we were friends. Definitely going to shave your head in your sleep now and make flies out of the ginger. Now, I'm hoping that Hukamuri or Shidulu pops out. Now, this light is horrible for tracking. I mean, horrible. So I'm just going to keep on my snail safari, toddling along, hoping to find something. Steve's got some birds flying.
We do. We've got a flock of fork-tailed drongos that are flying through the air, and through binoculars I could see that there's a whole lot of termite alates. The termite reproductives, also known as flying ants, even though they are not ants, they are termites, coming out of the ground after the rain in search of a mating partner and in quest or in search as well of creating a new colony. This is something very common after the rainfall, that the alates come out of the ground because the ground is nice and soft, and the rain is actually a key for them to release the alates, and then they'll go off, find a partner through their little nuptial flight if they get past the marauding fork-tailed drongos, and then dig down into the ground somewhere and create a new colony. I spent some time, I think last week or the week before, with some amazing birds in and around termite mounds, but I have never seen a flock of about 8 or 9 fork-tailed drongos, all just hawking, as it would be. That flight pattern where they fly, catch, land, fly, catch, land. That is that type of sort of behavior, as if we were holding a hawk on our arm, and they'd fly off, catch something, and then come back to land at rest. You can see how marvelously they are doing that. Fork-tailed drongos are related to the flycatchers, and that ability to hawk and catch insects, aerial insects, is quite a specialist behavior for them. Very agile flight. Lots and lots of protein going in there, but there will be many alates that make it past the trap and get out there into the wilderness. Eloise, the termites are constantly active because there's no rain in the winter months. They don't necessarily create new termite mounds or go off on colonies to create new colonies, but they can potentially have reproductives waiting underground for more than a year. Before coming out. So those alates will grow, stay underground, and then as soon as that rain comes, the queen gives off a pheromone signal, and it goes throughout the colony, and they just release them like bats leaving the colony at night. And that is what's happening right here. Marvelous to see nature at work. Very important food source. Those fork-tailed drongos will get nice and fat off of that peanut butter tasting termite. How marvelous that is. We could go there and catch a few. They are quite tasty, but we don't want to disturb the birds doing their natural thing. Very tall grass here. Look at this. It's all beautiful grass. A little depression from the rain coming off the road. So we're going to go back over to James, who's driving. Let's see where he's off to.
Well, where I am is at the den, I think, or the potential den that Ralph found this morning of the hyenas. I'm just going to put any light on them. I think I'm in the right place. And I'm just going to do a little loop around. I don't want to get close, because if this is going to be a hyena den, well, that will be very exciting. If you weren't watching this morning, Ralph, the hyena man of Africa, drove in here following a hyena, and she started to excavate this termite mound here. Except, embarrassingly, I'm beginning to think it wasn't this one, because there is no fresh excavation in this mound. No, it wasn't this one. Okay, sorry, I'm going to keep looking for that. While we do that, Brentley Smith has managed to find himself a kudu.
Oh, finally, some animals. Nice little group of kudu. Even though it looks like they're eating grass, they're not. They'll be eating little plants that are growing out of the grass, of course, because kudu are browsers. Hello, little boy. We are blessed with a plethora of antelope species in South Africa. Minamu, yes, we do have a roan antelope, and they are quite endangered in South Africa. They're not endangered in Zambia and Botswana and Tanzania, and where else do they go? Angola. They're endangered in Angola, but yes, we do. It's not ideal habitat for roan here, so they do occur in the Kruger, but in quite small numbers in the northern parts of the Kruger. Now, one of the reasons a lot of the roan antelope numbers plummeted was due to bad management practices by humans when we didn't know any better. So the Kruger is busy trying to rectify that now with blowing up and destroying a lot of the dams in the park, and making sure that the natural movement of animals like buffalo and rhino and zebra don't hang around in those areas all year, because there's permanent water where there once wasn't, because the roan and sable populations were massively hit by not having enough available food, and they're very picky eaters. And they're one of the few antelope species that likes long grass. Most antelopes prefer short grass. Okay, well, the kudus are merging into the grey, and we're going to keep toddling along. But yes, so we do get roan antelope. There you get big herds of roan, and that's in further north. Their ideal habitat is what we'd call miombo or brachystegia woodland, which starts in Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, southern Angola, parts of Malawi, and carries on through there. It is not the greatest in terms of animal densities, because there isn't that much food in it, but it is a very, very important ecosystem in terms of biodiversity. There's huge biodiversity in the brachystegia woodlands, just not high mammal density. So in the woodland, I love Miombo. It is a true. You have to be a true naturalist or lover of the bush, because you can go many kilometers in Miombo without seeing a large mammal. One of the coolest things that lives in those Miombos is that giant chameleon species, the largest chameleon outside of Madagascar, weigh up to about 1 kg. So, and they'll be as long as my arm and about this big, like a big cat, but a chameleon. Actually, I have a picture of one, I'm sure, somewhere. Let me just find it for you quickly. What am I doing? There we go. Okay. Oh, no, wrong one. Oh dear. One of these things, I need to go all the way out. Remember, I put it on my phone for this particular reason, to be able to show you how big these chameleon species get. This was in southern Tanzania. I'm trying to remember its common name now, I can't remember. And you can see they are massive. And when you have them on your arm like that, it actually hurts quite a lot. It actually hurts quite a lot. They grip into you. So mostly they eat, or they do eat. No, Rusty. There we go, Rusty. They've been recorded eating birds, but mostly they'll eat lizards, geckos, the insect diversity in the Miombos is also incredible. So they do have a lot of different species they eat. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to keep searching for leopards, but it sounds like James has changed tack and is looking for where Howard resides.
Well, I found where Howard would reside. We decided not to hang around there. We did find the hole that had been excavated. It is still excavated. But I don't, she might have gone in there. She might be giving birth in there. She might be about to return to give birth. We don't want to sort of harass her. So I just stick our heads in. We did see where the digging had taken place, but we won't go back there for a little while. Now I'm really at a slight loss as to what to do. It's got very dark very quickly today. And so I guess we're now into the realms of potluck. So if we drive around for long enough, we will hopefully find something. D. Syed, you say, how would knowing about... Hyena's calling to the south of us. Somewhere behind that pole. That's really well heard. Well done, Seb. D. Syed, you're asking, how does knowing about animals help someone? I think that there are 1,000 ways to answer that question. I guess the most obvious way, D. Syed, would be to say, by knowing about the animals around us, and by knowing about the wild places and the plants and the vegetation, we understand our place in the wilderness and our place as but one species of a vastly interconnected ecosystem that is planet Earth. Now, for many, but once you start to understand that, no matter what your religious persuasion might be you an atheist, an agnostic, a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a Hindu, a Buddhist, not that Buddhism is necessarily a religion, but that's another topic entirely. No matter what your persuasion, you understand that you are part of a whole, and that our abuse of this whole, our abuse of wild places, our vast numbers in comparison with every other mammal on planet Earth, you can see how damaging we are, because it is only through our understanding of wild places and wild animals that we will come to an understanding of how dependent we are on those wild places for our own survival. Now, that's quite a leap from knowing about elephants to getting to an appreciation of where we as a species, or how we as a species, are dependent on the wilderness. But it begins with the iconic animals. It begins with the lions and the elephants and the leopards and their amazing lives. And it is through then delving a little deeper. And often people are hooked into being interested in the wilderness by those iconic creatures. Let me learn a bit about lions. Okay, well, what do they eat? Well, how many are there left? Oh, there are only 20,000 left in the world. That's not a lot. What do they eat? Where do they live? Wow, they live in tiny little pockets of land surrounded by masses, swathes of human beings, all of them multiplying at an astonishing number. And it's only through that sort of knowledge that we can really appreciate the wilderness and understand that it plays a role in our own lives. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is, of course, that even if you don't believe that let me stop here. Even if you do not believe that this particular grass plant, and I'm not pulling the whole plant out, I'm just pulling out a piece of it. Even if you don't believe that this particular grass plant has any right to existence, or that it has any intrinsic value on its own, or that the minute orb-web spider that I've just spotted that lives in this beautiful inflorescence, even if you don't believe that that orb-web spider has any intrinsic value to you or the world, or that it has any specific role to play in your survival, at least what will happen is that you will appreciate its practicality to your survival. You know what I mean? So even if you don't look at it and think that's just beautiful, and because it's beautiful, I want to conserve it, I think it has the right to life, because a lot of people don't come to that realization. In fact, the little spider, I can just see it over there. It's tiny. It's about 1 millimeter long. So even if you don't believe that that spider is a beautiful creature and therefore deserves our attention and deserves our efforts to conserve it, what you will... you got him?
Yeah.
Even if you don't believe that, what you will come to believe or come to understand is that that tiny spider and its relatives have an appreciable effect on our ability to survive as a species. Right? That makes sense? Quite a big topic, that. Good topic. Nice one. Especially in the dark, when there's not much to see. I'm still plugged in, yes I am. Kirsten's just so astounded by my answer that she's not speaking anymore. Or she's fallen asleep. It's quite possible the latter. Okay, let us continue in our search. I suppose I'd better take out the spotlight. Today I use for the first time this rather l'orange spotlight. Ew. Cole, you're wondering how they got Jason Statham to do safaris. Well, you know, as I've got older, it's become a little more difficult to pull off the stunts that I used to. It's got a little more difficult to find roles into which my aging martial arts body can fit. You know, it was all very well doing that film with Sylvester and Dolph and who else was in it? I think Bruce was in it too, and Arnold even. They were all in it. And you know, that was a kind of swan song for people of my ilk, and so I decided, rather than try and keep my youth in some way and try and act in serious films, which of course I used to do, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch, wonderful films that I was in, but then I kind of typecast myself as an action hero, and I've got a bit old for that, so now it's time for me to take on something more valuable to the world of conservation, and that's why I'm doing this now. But thank you very much for your question. All right, let's go back to Brent Lea Smith and find out if he's managed to find a leopard.
I haven't, but I've got a story for you. I wonder if James has ever told you how he got to the first person who compared him to Jason Statham. I don't know if he's ever told that story. Now, James, before joining us here at Safari Live, he used to work to the north of us here, north of a town called Palaborva, and he was driving back to Johannesburg or from Johannesburg, and he stopped at a petrol station, or a gas station as you call it. And now in South Africa we don't pump our own gas. There are attendants that pump the gas, and James went into the little shoppy there. I don't know what he was doing, and as he walked out, the guy who pumps the gas just went "ow," which is howl, like wow, howl, like an exclamation, transporter. And he decided James looked like the transporter. But if James, as you say, if you had seen the car James was driving at the time, it is definitely nothing the transporter would have been caught dead driving. But yeah, that's how that all came about. I remember James telling me this with great glee, that the petrol attendant outside Polokwane thought he looked like Jason Statham, the transporter. Very, very funny. He does have a resemblance, I won't lie, to the transporter. We just wish his driving skills were nearly as good as the transporters. I'm trying to find you a chameleon now. Kirsten says we can't have everything. Yes, poor Jamesy. I'm trying to find a chameleon. There have been a few around with this late rain, so hopefully we'll spot one. And not only a chameleon, a leopard. But yes, that was very funny. James has some very humorous tales from his times up in Pelaborva. Maybe one day, if you're nice, he'll tell you the stories about the Palabora Golf Club. Those are quite entertaining. So when he was up there, he used to come visit. It was also before I joined Safari Live. He used to come visit us in Hoedspruit. James and I thought we were very clever the one day. We went to a wine auction, both of us with the intention of not buying a single bottle, and walked away with, I think it was like 8 crates or something ridiculous we bought them together and shared the price, but we weren't going to buy a thing, and we ended up spending a lot of money. But it was very useful because we had gifts for ages, and it was for a very good cause, the wine auction. The money raised went to rhino conservation in the area around Hoedspruit, particularly on the game reserve where I spend a lot of time, where my parents live. And so it went to the rhino conservation of that area. So it was a good cause. Although I think their trick to make us buy all that wine was to ply us with the merchandise beforehand. It was good fun that night. Very good fun. James is definitely one of the most entertaining humans I've ever had the joy of knowing. And fortunate to have known him for a long time now. Over 10 years that I've known Commander Bond, James Henry. Okay. Where is anything? I'm getting a bit desperate here. My snail safari is not working so well at the moment. Okay, I'm going to continue to search desperately for a heartbeat. While we do that, let's go back across to the man himself, the transporter.
Well, the transporter's managed to find himself what can only be described as the one-horned lady. Some kind of interesting circus animal, really. Oh, it's not only one horn. I believe you saw it earlier with Brent. That does not surprise me. We've gone into infrared now. Sorry about that. And there's a man giraffe. Thank you, Kirsten, very much. Would you just like to take over narrating the sighting? Now, apparently, these were the two that were trying to get it on, as it were, on this Friday evening. Well, as is most of the story out here, the male hounding the poor female. Now, we watched 2 giraffe attempting a mating session a while back, and it took them, I think we watched for about an hour, attempted mountings, and still there was no success. I suspected you may have seen these two because giraffe have been particularly hard to come by of late. Ooh! He's going to try and hound her into one position. This can go on for hours, like I say. And of course, there is nothing he can do if she is not willing. Because as soon as he sort of rears up onto his hind legs in order to do the act, she just takes 2 steps forward and he falls on his face. So it really is up to her. I think they're seeking some privacy, Seb. Should we carry on, poor things? Oh. There we go. Move the sophisticated light round to the front. Turn on some other lights. The bright l'orange spotlight today. It's quite a spotlight, this one. In fact, this would be perfect for Jamie, because Jamie likes to spotlight like this, and this one's much lighter than the other ones. It's always been completely remarkable to me how someone as slightly built as Jamie manages to hold. She's obviously got incredibly powerful shoulders, because I couldn't hold this thing up for any length of time at all. Okay, what we're going to do now is go to the far northern end of Djuma along the western boundary and see what we can find there. The original transporter story didn't happen in Phalaborwa. It happened outside of Polokwane, which is one of the most lamentable places in all of South Africa. And I don't know if Brent told you this, but what I did was, when he said, "Are you the transporter?" I pointed at my aging Opel Astra and said, "What do you think?" He said, "Oh, no, it is not you." Anyway, that was the story of the transporter. I didn't have an Audi A6 or A8, I don't forget what he was driving. Nor did I have black gloves on my hands. Elise, you want to know where I worked in Phalaborwa? I didn't actually work in Phalaborwa, mercifully. In fact, if there is one more lamentable settlement than Polokwane, it is Phalaborwa. Quite astounding, really, because it is on the borders of the Great Kruger National Park. But it is a tip, because it's a mining town, so you wouldn't expect it to be a haven of great architectural innovation, and it most certainly isn't. I lived north of Phalaborwa by about 50 kilometers on an illegally built backpackers, and it was close to a village known as Mbaula, or and then another one called Palaubeni, and I was doing some teaching of some local people up there. Fascinating year I had. We were going to start a business empire up there. Well, I'm afraid I'm not a very good businessman, so it didn't really pan out as I'd hoped. Anyway, so it goes. You win some, you lose some. Sometimes you lose a lot, and then win a few. Okay, while I lament on my pathetic entrepreneurial and business skills, let's go back to Brent Leo-Smith, who, well, I have nothing interesting to say about this particular link, so let's just go back across to him.
James, shame, you're being a bit harsh on yourself there. What the guys tried to do up there was truly inspiring. They tried to change the world. It was a massive project, and with lots of pitfalls and whatnot. And unfortunately that one didn't work, but you never know, Jamesy, the next one might. It was very inspiring. I went and filmed some stuff for James up there while he was there, working up there, when I used to spend more time behind a camera than in front of one. I must say, if I think about it, I don't really miss being behind the camera that much. Oh, there we go. There's a hard one. Hard question. Minamu, how many different species of chameleon in Africa? I have no idea. Lots. So it also depends if you include Madagascar. Madagascar's got the highest diversity of and number of chameleon species in the world, including the biggest chameleons, even bigger than that Meller's chameleon I showed you a little bit earlier. I'm going to have to do some research, Minamu. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to fib. I'm not going to talk nonsense. I'm going to have to do some research and find out for you. So the second largest in terms of number of species in Africa, I know, is Tanzania. So you've got some very interesting mountain ranges there called the Eastern Arc Mountains. And on these Eastern Arc Mountains, quite often they're separated by quite a big gap, and you've got remnant rainforest up there, and you've got intense speciation on each of those mountain ranges. The Imbarikas, the Urudzungwas. So even though they come from the same original sort of species, like the different mountain ranges that can even be opposite each other, like not even 50 kilometers apart, the chameleons have developed into completely different species, and tiny little ones with 3 horns, but it is very interesting. As I said, I'm going to have to find out for you. Those Eastern Arc Mountains are fascinating because even the birds and the snakes on those Eastern Arc Mountains have speciated a lot of the way, a lot, to have literally one, like the Ulunguru. There's another set of them called the Ulungurus, and the Ulunguru bushshrike only lives on one mountain in the Ulungurus. So it is incredible. Oh, sorry, Impalalas. Let's not just blind you. Why aren't you snorting at a leopard for me? That would be much more pleasant for me. Move, little Impalalas. Move, little Impalalas. Okay. There's some absolutely fascinating thing. In southern Africa, we don't actually have that many chameleon species. There's a couple of endemics to the Karoo and to the Fynbos areas, but for the most majority of South Africa, we have one chameleon species, which is, of course, the flap-necked chameleon that we see a lot around here. Kenya, we had a few more around the Mara. I'm not exactly sure exactly how many. Oh, hold on, Sen, that's a bit of a big bump there. As I said, I'm going to have to find out. That's an excellent question, Minamu. I love being challenged. I love learning new things. So I'm going to learn about chameleons after drive today to find out how many different species of chameleons we have in mainland Africa. Now, of course, the chameleon king is Scott Dyson. He can spot chameleons from a mile away for some reason. I'm going to try emulate him now and find ourselves a chameleon. Let's go see what James is up to in IR.
Well, much the same as I was when you last saw me, looking desperately for night animals. I had a pile of night animals somewhere off-road, just behind us, a whole lot of eyes, and I wondered if it wasn't perhaps a mother and a whole lot of babies, perhaps porcupines. Drove off to have a look, and they'd all disappeared into the grass, and obviously I didn't want to try and crush them, so I'm not sure what they were. Would have been quite interesting. Alas and alack. Chameleons and Scott. Yes, Scott is the master at chameleons, snakes and bird nests. I think he's actually got some very sharp eyes. A very sharp set of peepers he has. So he is very good at finding them. We'll try and find you our single species of chameleon. I'm not sure I'll be able to tell you anything about it that you didn't already know. Raina, you want to know what my number one thing that I want to see in wildlife is? Raina, I do like big cats, so I'd love to see a snow leopard. I would also love to see a wolf. There's something about wolves that fascinates me, and this is obviously in the wild. I'd love to see a wolf in the wild. A polar bear is another good one, and of course a jaguar. I would love to see a jaguar. It was my long wish to see a tiger in the wild, and that was granted to me last year. That was fantastic. And then there was one other thing that I wanted to see. Oh, a grizzly bear. I'd love to see a big grizzly bear in the wild. So those things, wolves, grizzlies, jaguars, snow leopards, I guess would be the top of my list of things to see. But there's so many other little things that would be fascinating. I'd love to see those hyacinth macaws in South America. I'd love to see gorillas and chimpanzees in the wild. That would just be especially special. Orangutans, and if we go to Borneo, well, that's going to be extremely exciting to spend time with orangutans and gibbons. other well, not great apes, but other ape species, monkeys. So, I mean, there are just hundreds of interesting things I'd like to see. Some of the bird species there, harpy eagles. Forests full of those enormous trees. Birds of paradise in Papua New Guinea. Oh, there's a scrub hare. Can you believe it, Sebastian? I'm not going to stop for it. We will see more clearly illuminated scrub hares than that. Hopefully with a leopard chasing after them. So many, many things. Pumas, I suppose, I'd like to see. Cougars in North America. Leah, kangaroos. I'd love to see a kangaroo. Yes, absolutely. I don't reckon it's on the same list as the snow leopard, the jaguar or the grizzly bear, but a kangaroo would certainly be fascinating to watch, especially in the outback, if it was in a sort of really wild Australian place. And I think there are lots of wild Australian places left in the world. In Australia. You can't really have a wild Australian place anywhere other than in Australia. I think that's quite difficult. Yeah, no, in fact, it's impossible. In Africa, I guess it would be gorillas and chimpanzees would be the things that I would like to see the most. Forest elephants, pygmy hippos, giant forest hogs. Yes, the geladas in Ethiopia sounds like an Italian ice cream. With those astounding, the massive baboons. Go and look at a picture of a gelada. You'll be amazed. It'll make you think of Italian ice cream. It's made me feel very hungry suddenly. Oops, big bounce. Let's have a little stop and a listen to the night sounds here, because my voice is getting tiring to myself. All you can hear really are some crickets. I would hope to see a little frog or perhaps something there. There doesn't seem to be any kind of frog action going on. Just the single solitary one note of a stridulating cricket. He's not a very tuneful fellow, he's kind of monotonic, but like a cicada. They're of course finished for the year. You can also maybe just vaguely hear the whisper of the wind through the grass. An eerily peaceful atmosphere. Let's try something while we don't have anything to actually look at. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn out all the lights. And what Sebastian's going to do is turn off his infrared light. And your screen. So, okay, I know you can't see anything. What I want you to do is close your eyes, so it doesn't really matter that you can't see what's going on. And then I want you to place yourself here, and I will describe the sounds, and then I'll describe the smell, and you can see how close you are to being in the African wilderness. Okay, let's count silence. Did you all manage to do that for 10 seconds, eyes closed? If you can, still keep your eyes closed. You can hear that cricket still going. The wind in the grass and in the tree above us to the left. Sebastian breakdancing in the back. And then the smell. Now we've parked ourselves on a seep line, which means there's quite a strong smell of mud. can smell the sort of dry parts of the grass, but it does smell quite sort of wet and inundated. And mostly what you can't smell is any form of humanity. And away in the background, some thunder. Right. That was our little atmospheric. Look, we'll put some lights on now.
Hello.
There we are. Back we are. Okay, on we go. All right, let's go back to Brent and find out what he has managed to find on this, well, rather, shall we say, heartbeat-free evening.
Absolutely squashed. James was chatting about smells. The one smell that's definitely missing for me at the moment is the smell of elephants, and it is one of my favourite smells. So I haven't smelt Ellie's, fresh Ellie, for a long time. Quite sad. Miss the Ellies. They'll be back though. Never fear. Now, I know you were chatting about, or James was chatting about animals he would really like to see, sort of bucket list species. Now, I think there's one he might have forgotten, and it's definitely on for me, and it lives in the same country as the geladas. And Ethiopia, just as a country itself, is high on my bucket list. But it's the Ethiopian wolf, the most endangered canid in the world. Oh, bronze-winged courser! No, bronze-winged courser! No, come back, you... Oh, the first thing we see in absolute ages, and it flies away. Hopefully, with it being so quiet, we're going to get a flurry of unusual critters before the end of the drive. Maybe a civet. That would be nice. Or a honey badger. Otherwise, we might just have to show you Senzo's colourful socks. That's the last resort, though. Joy, in Hong Kong, I wish I had seen lemurs before. I haven't been lucky enough to travel to Madagascar yet, but that is on my bucket list. But I think for me personally, like Ethiopian wolves, a really big Kodiak grizzly bear, tigers definitely on my list, snow leopard, clouded leopard, bears, and wolves, bears and wolves. I'd really like to see bears and wolves a bit. That would be awesome. Sorry? What'd you say, Sense? Orangutan. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see great apes and stuff like that, but I do prefer my apex predators to the great apes. I like the teeth and the claws. Now, chimpanzees are definitely the scariest animal I've ever faced on foot. Zandini wants to know, are there mandrills here in South Africa? No, they're not. They only occur up north. Central African Republic, Congo, Cameroon, Gabon is where they occur. I have seen a mandrill in the wild. They live in massive troops, up to 200-300 of them. Very cool looking primate species. Now, there's a relative to the mandrill called a drill. And a drill only occurs on Bioko Island. So obviously that animal got separated out on that island, and it is now only found on Bioko Island, which is Equatorial Guinea. Yes, Equatorial Guinea. There's some other things that I'd like to see that aren't sort of really... Oh, a carpi, Congo peacock. There's still so much left for me to find in Africa. I don't know how I can ever leave and find time to look at other things outside of Africa. But I will try. Okay, come on. One chameleon, a bush baby would go down a treat. Now, we have good old Pantheropardus, Jamie, in the Mara, same leopard as we get here. It is... was there an argument for subspecies? I can't remember. But a lot of those subspecies of lions and leopards have been debunked in the last 10 years. They are not subspecies. So a lot of things depend on food availability and stuff like that. Depends on how big they get, how small they are. So it's the same leopard as that occurs through the majority of Africa. Now, you would think rainforest leopards in Congo and Gabon and places like that would be monsters and big, and they're not. They're actually quite a lot smaller than savanna leopards, and they also have much bigger territories, and that's due to the low density of large prey. So leopards there mostly feed off little duikers, occasionally red river hogs, and occasionally something like a baby chimp or baby gorilla if they're lucky. But those are very risky. I was just saying, chimps scare the absolute daylights out of me. They're definitely the scariest animal on foot. I mean, I got charged by one, and I mean, he took a tree. Let me find a sort of similar sized one. But I mean, the tree was like this, and he just broke it with one hand, and raged and smashed all the vegetation. I mean, he could rip your arm off, literally, a chimpanzee. They are incredibly strong animals. I think they're like 6 or 7 times stronger than the strongest man. And the other thing is, I think the other thing that makes them quite scary is their intelligence. You know, they're looking at you, they're figuring you out. They're going, you I don't like. You, there's a problem. But they are still fascinating creatures. I definitely preferred tracking and following chimps to tracking and following gorillas up there. I just found the chimp society far more dynamic and entertaining. A lot more sort of politics and whatnot, where gorillas can be quite sedentary. I mean, they sleep, they eat, they fart. And often that's how you find gorillas in the western lowlands, in particular in certain areas. So it's very difficult to actually see the footprints and like that. But you can smell a gorilla when they're close, within a couple of 100 meters, and that's from their flatulence. So you track gorillas by flatulence. It's not a very pleasant smell either, depending on what they've been eating, particularly if they've been eating vitex, which is a type of fruit. Now let us hope for a last-minute leopard while we keep looking for that. Let's go see what James is hoping to find in the last little bit of the show.
Spotted something in that tree there, and I think what it is a shiny piece of bird poo. Can you see it there, Sebastian? I've got really quite good at it. Shine right in the middle. Yeah, there, up, and there you had it. That's it, up a bit. That's it. Is it a leaf? Is that what I'm looking at? I'm pretty sure that's what I'm looking at. Is that all the zoom we have?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a bit. Yeah, that's the best I can do.
That's the best you can do. Well, I think it's probably just an odd-coloured leaf. How very strange. What a sighting that is. Our cup runneth over with great abundance. Phew. Hey, can you believe it? Of all the things we could have seen tonight, I bet none of you thought these people on Safari Live are so skilled they'll show us a white leaf. Good. I am now blind. Kirsten says you can tick that off your bucket list. Well, I suppose you can, yes. I can't believe that's all it was. Let's see if we can find another strange coloured leaf. James, you're wondering if it's too late in the season for the possibility of bullfrogs. It is, in theory, because it's going to get dry now. They like to eat termite alates, and so I think you'll probably find that most of them are already in a state of estivation underneath the ground. But if we were to have a hot spell and a whole lot of rain, there's no reason they shouldn't come out. So I would say, yeah, probably too late, but nothing's impossible. which is of course how anybody in this, you should never answer a question with definites out here, because the next day you will almost always be proved entirely wrong. Now this morning, yes, that's what we call the first part of the day, it's the morning, not the afternoon, that's what we've just done. This morning, Steve stuck his head out of the tent because he heard something he thought dying, and Ralph then looked very hard and didn't find anything dead. So we'll go down towards what they call the Braai site, which is a sort of place where Djuma guests have dinner out in the bush from time to time. Let's see if we can't follow up what happened there. That's the best plan I can come up with at this stage, because we haven't had any alarm calls or anything else going on. Also, you're wondering about crabs on Djuma. You say it's been a long time since we've seen them. It is a long time, and for those of you who are new viewers, we do actually get freshwater crabs here from time to time. There was one called Pinchy Hyena, which used to live down by sort of southwestern corner. We had one called Squeezy Dyson that lived not far from central Djuma in a puddle. They both lived in puddles and then little holes in the puddles. But it's been a very long time since we've seen a crab, and I saw one migrating once on this very road. I took a photograph of him. But I haven't seen them for a while. They've never been, shall we say, here in great hordes, and so yes, I suspect they are still around, but of course they're not very common. We think through being crushed by the bottom of a buffalo which sat in his puddle and on his hole, and we think he was unable to dig himself free. It wasn't very nice of the buffalo. In fact, it was very unpleasant of the buffalo. It's getting a bit windy and cold now, so I'm not too sad that soon I will be having a lovely lamb dinner. Jinlin, you want to know what the most problematic animal around camp is? Jinlin, I can't believe you could give me such a beautifully blank canvas on which to paint. It's Brent Leo Smith. He is by far the most troublesome animal that we have around the camp. I couldn't resist that. I guess it must be a hyena. The hyenas still come into camp from time to time, and if we leave the dustbins out of the kitchen, somebody forgets to put them in, well, then the hyenas will drag them out of camp. Elephants in winter can be a little bit troublesome as well. They come in looking for any sort of green vegetation, and they can be a real menace outside when you're trying to sleep, but it's so wonderful waking up to the cracking of branches outside your window and thinking, goodness, there's an elephant out there, and then you look out and all you see is a grey wall, and that is an elephant. So elephants and hyenas and Brent Leo Smith, I suppose. Thank you, gentlemen, for that conversation starter. Right, let's go across to Brent Leo Smith now. I have no doubt he will have a pithy response to my calling him the most troublesome animal around camp.
Duck! I mean, what? Duck off a water's back. Water off a duck's back. James can try to convince himself of that, but it's not true. It is not true. Now, hello, well, we do have some animals, yay! And I'll switch into the infrared to view them. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. From Sleepy Impala and Inyala. There we go, nice male Inyala. They'll feed it for a little bit now, but normally at about this time of the evening, a lot of the ruminants are going to find a place to bed down to spend the night. As you saw, the impala have already started. There's that impala. Oh no, there we go. Well, not quite yet. Hello, little boy. Now, Nandini, the different characteristics between kudu and Inyala are quite vast. Size, the kudu is double the size of an Inyala, and also, of course, they are sort of that grey, beigeish colour, where male Inyalas are dark chocolate brown and the females are orange. Where are you off to? Now, I was hoping we might find the gnu's as well. Let's move on a little bit, see if we can find the gnu's bedding down for the light. Let's turn my lights off not to blind the poor impalalas. Let's not drive into a tree though, that would be not ideal, and James would never let me forget it. Okay. Where are the gnu's? Let's quick sweep across. There are the gnu's. I do like gnu's, especially at this time of the year. They're very entertaining. Although these ones are probably going to be mostly in nap mode at the moment. In the darkness, that way, Sens, somewhere, is the gnu. Let's just have a look once the light's on. There we are. Hello, gnus. They're a bit far from the road. I don't want to go disturb them. Quite a lot of them look to be lying down. Here we go. Yeah, the IR light's on. No, they're just quite far. They might come closer to us. Now, the most prominent animal to see at night, Tom, is probably a scrub hare. It's the most common nocturnal critter we see on drive. A little scrub hare. See if we can find you one now. Oh, see, the gnus are lying down. They're not going to come closer to the road, unfortunately. So let's move along. See if we can find you the most common nocturnal critter that we see out on our night drives, which is, of course, the little scrub hare. There should be at least 5 around here. Oh, stick in the road. I should probably turn my lights back on, that'll help. I'm not blinding any poor beasties. Not a chameleon, I don't know. I looked really hard for chameleons as well. No bush babies either. I normally find at least one bush baby before the end of drive. Alas, doesn't seem like today, but I will try find you a scrub hare. What? No scrub hares? Of course, they are trying to avoid me. It's amazing when you don't look for scrub hares, you can see 30 or 40 a night, but as soon as you start looking for them, they become very scarce. Maybe James will have a bit more luck with the scrub hare.
We've got a bush baby. Hooray, hooray, there it is. It's going to jump. It's jumping. It's gone like a gummy bear. Did you see it? You didn't see it. Oh, drat. We have seen 1,000 scrub hares, but Brent is obviously correct, because as soon as you start looking for them, they will be absent. There it is. Can you see? Look in the middle of the... There, top. In the middle of the spotlight. Up.
Yeah.
There we go. You got him. Is he in IR?
Yet, but he'll be now. Yeah.
No. Well, that was a fantastic bush baby sighting. Oh. Hey, Sib? Proper action. Kirsten thinks she can spot it from the final control, which is very impressive. I sure as... No, there it is. Middle of the light. There. Middle of the light again. There.
Where? There?
And I've lost it again. Everybody, one day what we're going to do is provide you a radio feed with what we have to listen to from the final control. I've just got 2 minutes left for the Blair Witch Project. Okay, let's go back quickly and see if we can't find one scrub hare for you. They're all now hiding. Since Brent said they were so common, they've now decided they're going to hide. Ziggy, you want to know if all the critters are on leave? Yes, they are. They are all on leave, including now the scrub hares. Not one. There! Don't hide. Come here. Come here. There. Can you believe it? Phew! We've just saved the drive, according to the final control. And we have 40 seconds left of this magnificent creature before we must bid you fond adieu. We'll probably sit with this animal, I think, for at least the next 2 hours or so, just enjoying him sitting there doing absolutely nothing. Thank you everyone for joining us on our drive today. It has been great fun actually, driving around with Brent on the other end. We will be back of course tomorrow at 0600 hours. And remember, tomorrow afternoon Safari Live is our new show starting at 4 o'clock Central African time. Until then, from Sebastian and I, from Brent and from the scrub hare, may you have a wonderful evening.